We got quite a few confirmations from a recent interview done with Tom Zhu, who is the executive president of Tesla China. And a lot of it is information we kind of knew, but we were just kind of reading about it in ecological reports. But essentially, they did an interview. It's all in Chinese if you want to watch it. But he essentially confirmed that for one, they have a production rate of 250,000 vehicles right now, but they expect to have around 450,000 vehicle capacity by the end of 2021. Most people are speculating that's a bit conservative. And he also talked about how the R&D center they plan on setting up for the Model 2, that a lot of us are calling it right now, but basically the first Tesla vehicle that was designed by the Chinese demographic and people that they hired locally around Shanghai. They expect that facility to be done midway through 2021, so around the summertime. And they're also working on the factory that will mass produce the Model 2, and they expect that could even potentially be active by the end of 2021, and I think those numbers are a bit generous. A lot of people are expecting that this next generation Tesla that's rumored to start between the price of $25,000 and $30,000, that could be testing city streets at some point in 2021. And personally, I don't think they'll be testing a vehicle before they actually officially unveil it on public roads. So maybe some of the timelines are just a tad too generous, but it does point to the idea that the 25K Tesla could be unveiled in 2021, and we could potentially see deliveries of it at some time in 2022. It also reaffirms our belief that it will come out to the Chinese market first, which makes a whole lot of sense knowing how low the operating costs are in China. But really great news here that we finally have confirmation of, thanks to the Tesla China president, is that they do plan on selling this vehicle globally. So I'm very curious to see Tesla talk more about this, because we've seen Elon talk about how in Europe they want to design a smaller European style hatchback to fit that demographic. And based on the latest investor relations page, it looks like production of the Model 3 in Berlin might not be the next step after Model Y is built out. They might want to leapfrog Model 3 and just go straight to the European style hatchback. But how different can a European style hatchback be if in China they plan on building out a 25K model that is also rumored to be built on the Model 3 chassis, which means that it won't necessarily be the same size as the Model 3. It will probably have wheels a lot closer together and probably not as long end to end as Alwanart has speculated here. Probably a lot shorter frunk, and instead of a trunk you have just a bit more of a hatchback. It would be a smaller vehicle, but likely still sharing a lot of parts that we see in the Model 3 and Y. Kind of part of the reason the Model Y was so easy to mass produce is because it shared 75% of the parts as the Model 3, and the parts that it didn't share with the Model 3 were a lot easier and more simple to mass produce, as the casting press was able to save hundreds of robots on the assembly line, which of course means less complexity, less time, and less money for Tesla as a whole. But since it's bigger than the Model 3, they get to have thicker profit margins on it. Now that they're going in the opposite direction and trying to make an even cheaper vehicle than the Model 3, I'm guessing they will likely be incorporating a lot of the lessons they've learned with the Model Y when it comes to the front casting press, the rear casting press, and of course the 4680 cells with their structural battery packs. Perhaps some of the 4680s they're producing at the pilot line in Kato will find their way into prototype units in the Chinese-made Model 2 later in 2021 or maybe the beginning of 2022. But if they plan on selling this vehicle globally, then what's really the point of Berlin coming up with a second type of European-style hatchback? I'm not really sure how many differences there can truly be there. I mean, I'm curious of your guys' ideas. Do you think one of them should be a two-door and one of them should be a four-door, or should they just come up with the same Model 2 design and they'll start with the Chinese market, but then in time eventually start building it at Berlin, and hopefully whatever they design in China could be universal enough to the point that it would fit the European market well and the Chinese market well? Totally plausible. That could end up happening. Or do you think that the demographics are different enough that Berlin could come up with something a bit more different or more unique than whatever China has cooking up, and they would each have some pros and cons? Maybe one's a bit more focused on aesthetics and one's more focused on functionality. This was always my hope, because I wanted Tesla to make multiple variants of sub $30,000 EVs that would still probably have lithium iron phosphate batteries, but one would be like a cyber aesthetic, all stainless steel, no paint, and really durable, and it would just be kind of the little brother of the Cybertruck, and the other one could utilize Berlin's amazing paint shop and, you know, great quality control and be focused on making it a very curvy and beautiful looking car, but maybe have some more design symmetry similar to the Model 3 and Y instead of the Cybertruck. But given these ecological reports are referring to whatever Tesla is designing to be very similar to the Model 3. My idea of a little cyber coupe feels less likely now. I won't say impossible. I'll just say probably not as for sure as before. And whether or not Tesla decides to make more cyber-themed vehicles will probably depend on how easy mass production for the Cybertruck is, which Elon has said on the record now it's not going to be easy to mass produce because doing a stainless steel exoskeleton like that has never really been attempted before. There are stainless steel vehicles like the DeLorean, but they weren't exoskeletons and they were using very different types of steel than what the Cybertruck is using. So finding a way to mass produce that is going to be a challenge. But if they find a way to do it easily in a way that's cost effective, maybe they'll start making more cyber-themed vehicles. But in the meantime, it seems like paint is going to be a thing on the 25K Tesla, and knowing that they plan on selling it globally could mean that Tesla maybe starts exporting vehicles outside of China, which, yeah, there would be an import tariff in certain countries, particularly the United States, if you wanted to build a car in China and then import it to the US. So they might just decide to wait on bringing it to the US market until they can build it in Texas themselves. But the truth is, even with those import fees, if you're starting the vehicle off at $25,000, the fees would not be terribly much. I mean, even a 10% fee wouldn't push you over $30,000. So you could have some very, very competitive pricing, even if the Model 2 is imported to Europe from China. And since the president is saying they're willing to do that with the Shanghai factory, there's good evidence to suggest they expect some kind of massive scale with such a low-cost, more compelling vehicle. So I'm very excited to hopefully at some point get some confirmation from Elon that they plan on unveiling it sometime this year. We haven't had a Tesla event in a long time. I guess we had Battery Day, but that felt very different from the Cybertruck event, which was coming up on a year and a half ago now. You know, we'll hit the 2-year mark since the Cybertruck was unveiled this year, which feels like a very, very long time because I remember it like it was yesterday. So if they plan on delivering a few of these super cheap Teslas next year, I want to see what this thing looks like. I want to know how they make it more compelling, and what's probably more interesting, less compelling than a Model 3. It's always easy for me to come up with dream scenarios of like, ooh, the car could do this and it could do this. That's easy and that's just fun, but at the same time, it's also challenging to figure out how do you make a compelling Tesla that's $25,000 that doesn't completely butcher the existence of the Model 3, you know? If that's their cheapest car right now, what are they going to take out that the 3 has that the Model 2 won't have but will still be compelling enough for people? That's always an interesting debate to me, and I love getting some confirmation from Tesla executives about this. So let me know what features you think they'll leave in or leave out for the Model 2. Thank you all for watching. Hope you have an excellent rest of your day. Take care.